Alright, so it's been a little while with moving and getting sick and all these different things, but you guys have been exploring level 5, the Wyllowwood, here in Undermountain. You encountered Willow again, who's kind of given you a request to help stop this poisonous effect on the river, which I've added visually now, so you can kind of see this kind of green stuff on the river. And you kind of explored a lot. You encountered a green dragon named Valdemar, who's actually possessed by this sentient weapon who's been a sword that's been driven through Valdemar's skull, but he survived that attack. And Tearulai is the sword who's kind of taken control of the dragon's body, and is not an evil sword. It's an evil dragon supposedly, but the sword has said that she is kind of like keeping the dragon in check, but is having a hard time fighting against her draconic instincts, and would like to be freed, but at the same time she doesn't want it, because once she's free, the dragon, comes back, Valdemar. So there's a conundrum, but she's agreed to try to meet you at the entrance to the level above this level, level 4, and potentially try to take care of business outside of Willow's domain, because Willow has expressed that she does not wish any creature in her domain to be harmed. Speaking of creatures that were harmed, you did come across a boat that turned out to be a mimic. And after being dragged across out into the water, George did, in this mimic boat, it erupted in all these little baby mimics, swarming the river and stuff and clinging to George. But you guys managed to fight those off. And now you find yourselves here at the bank of the river, this slimy, poisonous river, and in this little mouth of this cave, which also, just to remind you, you did kind of get the sense that if you were to head north in this cave, you may find an entrance to go down to another deeper level of Undermountain if you so chose. Anything that you guys can remember that I missed that you'd like to remind everyone else about? That's true, and you do have kind of a little bit of a sense that she may have gotten some kind of hint that you're conspiring with Tearulai a little bit. So if I remember right, I believe you said that Melannor, before we ended last session, cast Windwalk on everyone. You cast Windwalk, whoosh, you guys can just book it upriver, and you guys pass by another area here of beachfront forest to the northwest here, and then you head off map. So I'm just going to kind of narrate a little bit, kind of a theater of the mind style. So as you're heading north along the river, you actually travel for several miles. This river extends quite a long way. Eventually, and all you see as you continue is this kind of rocky ravine that you're traveling through. This river has carved a path through this mountain until it breaks open into Wyllowwood like you see here. So there's no like other forests and stuff north of here that you would be missing or something like that. It's just this rocky ravine that this river runs through. So eventually the landscape actually begins to rise upward, as if traveling up into the mountains, and the river's flow becomes much more rapid, flowing down from the higher elevation. And with Windwalk, you can fly up the mountainside at great speed, following along the river. And the river seems to have, over the many centuries, just carved this ravine deeper and deeper into the mountain. Kind of like the Death Star trench run from Star Wars. You find yourself flying over, roaring rapids with the poisonous sludge just churning in the water below you. And the elevation angles upward higher and higher until the river essentially becomes an impossibly tall waterfall, pouring poison water from above that you're just like gliding upwards along. And the light from the sunlight of Wyllowwood's domain becomes dimmer and dimmer as you soar upwards into the clouds and sky, but then you seem to kind of break free from the magic that was the daylight of Wyllowwood, and you break through it, leaving it behind you, and you find yourself now in a pitch black cavern, flying across almost completely vertical up a waterfall, flying higher and higher. You suddenly hear this cackle of laughter echoing across the chamber, and all of you suddenly feel a lurch and a violent turbulence in the air, and in your gaseous forms, this really knocks you around the cave quite a bit, and you find yourself, you know, trying to keep yourself steady, still flying upward, upward, upward. So I need everyone to roll a dexterity check for me. Oh, save. Sorry, you're right. Thank you. It's been a while. Okay, so everyone seems to be I'm going to kind of let this be like a group save. So overall, everyone did really well, and you're all kind of flowing together. The wind from each other kind of carries George along, who kind of gets buffeted by the wind quite a bit, and because you're all just made of wind essentially, and you're all just kind of pushing each other along like a V formation of birds, helping each other out with the pace of your flow of air. You're suddenly flying even faster than before, not by your own power, but by a seeming vacuum of air above you, pulling you upwards at a faster and faster pace. And you hear this loud voice call out, "Welcome to the Twisting Caverns!" And you hear echoing around you, and you all feel this massive physical blow against your bodies, and everything just goes black. You no longer hear the water, you no longer hear the wind. Everything is just quiet and dark. You see nothing. But everything just goes black, and you almost feel like you're sleeping. And then you all wake up. You're no longer in your gaseous forms. As you kind of come to consciousness, you notice the temperature has become much, much warmer than the temperate coolness that was Wyllowwood in the river. And the humidity has become a bit uncomfortable. You find yourself kind of dripping sweat in your armor, and it's becoming hot, and just, you know, Mississippi, you know, patches of vegetation, moss, fungus cling to the cavern surfaces all around you. Behind you, going this way, you find the cavern path rises up steadily, leading higher into Undermountain, and it appears that whatever the Mad Mage did to you seems to have deposited you back in your physical form at what would be considered an entrance to the 4th level of Undermountain, what he referred to as the Twisted Caverns. And the path opens in front of you. The ground is this soft, spongy moss with tracks and trails crisscrossing through it. You're not sure where exactly you are. You know the path behind you, it goes upwards. It's very dark. You're kind of all relying on your dark vision to get around, unless Draken wants to cast light. So as you continue exploring down this trail, you notice, again, the mossy sponginess, a lot of fungal matter and plant life, and just dripping, just liquid, like humidity off the walls. The walls kind of, the cavern walls glisten with moisture. You find these towering mushrooms that are very tree-like, but they are these large trunks with this spreading out of a mushroom top above you. That's what these dark circles are. This indicates a shadow from a mushroom top above. They're as thick as trees, growing like 40 feet tall above you in this cavern. It just revealed the room around you that you can see. Alright, so cast Speak with Plants. So which plant in particular? So what you see is these large, towering mushroom trees, as well as fungal matter everywhere, and these kind of larger, like regular mushrooms on the ground, but large ones you can see there. Kind of look like these large circular patterns, and then this kind of mossy substances. So just moss and fungus and stuff everywhere. So Melannor reaches down, kind of puts his hands on one of the fungal mushroom tops and casts Speak with Plants. So what does he say? Melannor hears this kind of voice in his head. He goes, "Oh, so strange for you two-legged types to stop and speak to us. Greetings." You don't know where you are? As far as I know, this place to be is my home, that you've come to. You're most welcome, as long as, of course, you aren't too destructive, like some others. I know of a river. I'm not sure about level 5s or willows, but there is a river not far from here. The mushroom continues as it doesn't taste very good these days. You see the surrounding fungus all kind of quiver and almost like doing the wave at a sporting event, just kind of ripple toward the south. Melannor feels this sense of distaste in his mouth, like this acidic taste, kind of like through the communication process. He's like getting some empathic results, and the mushroom kind of responds and says, I don't know. Just in the last several cycles, the taste has changed. Other creatures seem to be dwelling in the river than there used to be. Before, it was never clean, per se, but at least it was palatable. Now it's just awful. We have to find our moisture through the soil like a bunch of riff-raff grass. In the river, yes, some strange creatures. And the giant keeps smashing us as he walks through. He has no respect. He's bigger than you, put it that way. Whenever you step through, at least you don't crush us into the stone below. And as you look around, you can actually see a crisscrossing prints and footprints of different sizes, but you definitely do, as you're listening to this, Melannor kind of looks and sees these large, kind of humanoid, like Bigfoot prints stomped through, going toward the west. We'll try and stretch away a little, but we're kind of rooted to the ground where we are. Well, there's many creatures, some kinder than others as far as how they treat us mushroom folk. That seems to have come along with the creatures from the river, whatever they are. Thank you for the conversation. Don't get to do that very often, if ever. They all kind of do a little flutter as they absorb it. If he's still able to hear, if he's still able to communicate with them, you hear Melannor just hear just like, ah. Well, how about we all do a perception check? All of you can hear pretty easily to the west. You can hear the shuffling of some sort of creature. They look to be about, it's like a Bigfoot. It's like maybe even bigger than a Bigfoot. They're definitely a large creature, humanoid. We're talking like a 2x2 square, we'll say, versus the 1 square that you are. Based on the footprints, I would say you'd probably assume you'd probably come up to its waist, maybe belly, up a little bit lower torso. Well, these big mushrooms are towering up 40 feet above you. You know, they go into the darkness where your dark vision can no longer see. So it's a pretty tall cavern that you're in. You definitely can hear the sound of a large creature kind of shuffling to the west, and the footprints definitely seem to be, that you do see, they seem to crisscross through here, but they definitely are like multiple times heading toward this western path to the west, to the left here. But they do cross through here, and you can see now that these mushrooms, a lot of them have chunks ripped off of them and bite marks and things, and they seem to be like a food source for a lot of creatures in this area. With those perception rolls, you actually notice a dead body. Yeah, down here, underneath, at the base of this large tree-like mushroom right there, not pictured, we'll say, is the dead body of a drow. All right, well, that sounds like a medicine check, if you're looking for cause of death specifically. Not everybody's not suddenly becoming a doctor and medicine checking this thing, so the first roll I got was Wendune's, so I'll keep his. A 17. So Wendune rushes up, and this drow is suffered some sort of strange malady. The drow's skin normally is this kind of dark, bluish, purplish, hue, is translucent. And you can see like through the skin, and you can see like the muscles and tissues and such through this translucent layer of skin. And as you're got deeper into this cave to find this body, you actually see a couple other ones kind of pot marked around the cave. One of them seems to be still alive. So the one that's still alive, George, you see over here under the base of this tree. And again, suffering the same, all of these bodies are suffering the same malady. They all have this translucent appearance to their skin, and they're all just, their mouths and noses and pretty much any orifices of their body are dried and cracked like stone. And this drow just kind of gasps at you, and in Elvish speaks to you, says this gasping word or sentence. Asipa is body. And then it suddenly collapses dead to the ground. Mellanor did hear the Elvish, and Mellanor tells all of you that the drow said, "It listens from the tide." It listens from the tide before it died suddenly. You can hear the sound of a river sounds through the cavern walls somewhere in distance toward the south. Okay, yeah, these mushrooms, the ones that you see, I mean, you've seen some of these mushrooms before being served in Skullport. Wendune especially would recognize several of these mushrooms as being a very common foodstuff being used in Skullport. And so yeah, you pull off a piece of ripple bark from the wall and just kind of eat it, and it's definitely edible. It kind of resembles, having a raw mushroom like you'd expect it to be, but it doesn't taste bad at all. These large mushroom tree type things, they are known as zirkwood, and a lot of the buildings in Skullport are made of zirkwood planks and logs and things. So it's like essentially a tree substitute down here in Undermountain. So the zirkwood trees, or zirkwood mushrooms, are these large tree-like mushrooms that are very common throughout this region of Undermountain. As you're kind of contemplating this, you do hear the noise of footsteps coming from the cavern to the northwest. And this kind of voice going, from the northwest. Okay, so you're gonna hide around like this corner over here. All right, Draken runs over here. Does Melannor want to hide, or George? There's also these big zirkwood trees they could be hidden behind. Let's do a stealth check for everybody. The creature rolled a 25 perception check. And while it's temporarily distracted by this stink ball rolling past him, he sees all the movement rushing through and he goes, "Ugh! More drow? More elvish folk need help? Anybody still live? Are you dead? Jibber, I don't know if they're still alive." And you hear another voice go, "Be quiet, you baby." "But Jibber, they might need help." And he comes through here and he sees some of the dead drow that are around and like, "No, you're dead already. You all are dead already. I see you peeking out. Are you sick? Do you need medicine?" "Just leave them alone, Jabba. They don't know anything." "No, Jibber, they might need help." This two-headed Etten is talking to itself and seems to be asking if you folks need help. "Well, I know it was more than just you, but hello." Alright, Draken comes out. And the creature goes, "Oh, see, you don't need to hide. Jibba and Jabba are very friendly." And the other head goes, "Jabba's friendly." No, Jibba's friendly too. He's just cranky. No, Jabba's the friendly one." "Are you here to help the spider people too, the drow?" "Oh, good. I don't know. The spider people, they live in the caves to the east." And then the other one goes, "You don't need to tell them the whole story. Just get to the point." Okay. "Anyway, the river get all gross and yucky and they all get sick. The alchemist has been trying to help, but he's still working on it." "The alchemist, yes, he's Jibba Jabba's friend." And the other one goes, "The alchemist is a pretty fun guy." "Okay, the alchemist, he is smart and handsome and small, but with a big smile." And Jabba goes, "He does have a big smile." "He's to the east." The creature, the Jibba. "Oh no, spider people live far to the east. Alchemist nearby." Scrunches his way, like ducks down a little and pushes his way through this tunnel. And you can see the moss is and mushrooms have been just trampled through this little tunnel. You can tell he's been through here often. Jibber Jabber says, pointing up to the ceiling, he goes, "Watch out for stupid slug creatures." And Jabber goes, "Yeah, they bite." So you see all hanging from the ceiling, all these little slug-like teeth creatures all hanging above you that Jibber Jabber's pointing out. He kind of hugs the wall and kind of coming along this way, and when this one like falls down, he like cuts it in half as it comes down and it like splats on the ground. Kind of continues to squeeze up this direction. Alright, let's move you guys up here. So this tunnel opens up. You see a light coming from a little lantern and a tent set up, and these little shelves with bottles and things. And this, what appears to be a human young male, comes out of the tent at the sound of Jibber Jabber's doom stomping sound. "Alchemist! Alchemist!" And you all kind of come up. "You have visitors." And the other goes, "We probably shouldn't bother him. I'm sure he's busy." And this guy comes out of the tent and goes, "Oh," like in surprise. And he walks up to this little table, and on this little table you see several little potion bottles and such, and he grabs one and drinks it real quick, and he kind of wipes his mouth, and then he offers one to anyone who'd like to otherwise drink it. And Jibber Jabber goes, "Oh, I remember this. He doesn't speak the same language, so the potion helps us communicate." And so he drinks this potion down, It's kind of like a potion of the comprehend languages helmet that Draken has. He doesn't appear to speak common, I guess is the idea. Well, no. He doesn't speak any of those things, it seems, based on what Jibber Jabber is telling you. But he takes this potion down, and it allows the comprehend languages spelled, so he can understand now any language, but he can't speak it though. So in order to understand him, you would also need a comprehend language effect, which Draken has already. Yeah, he starts speaking, and it's kind of this strange language, a strange dialect coming from his. It doesn't really seem to match what he looks like. He looks like this kind of young, like almost like early 20s looking human, but he speaks what sounds like a heavy German, very like you know, very very probably condescending German sounds whenever he speaks. And Draken, you understand him because you have the same kind of comprehend language effect, but he's essentially saying, "Greetings, new friends. Please, please. I promise it'll help us to communicate if you would drink this." He has one available right now. He could probably make more. And he does see, as you all kind of come closer, he goes, "Oh," and he starts kind of like getting a mortal and pestle out and starts kind of like putting ingredients together to try to make more. Yeah. So you begin to communicate with him, Draken, and he realizes, oh, you don't need the potion. He offers it to someone else. As he puts it down and like offers it with a hand wave and begins to make more. He kind of looks at you and goes, "What do you mean? I'm speaking whatever language I was born with. No one else seems to understand me for some reason." One day, the Mad Mage kind of somehow deposited me in this cave, and everyone I've encountered, which is not very many, I will say, it's so nice to see so many people, but everyone I've encountered so far, it seems to not really understand anything I say, so I made this concoction to help communicate with people. Okay, so far though, the only one who understands anything he's saying is Draken. Everyone else just hears like a and Draken's going, "Oh yeah, okay." It's like Han Solo talking to Chewbacca, essentially. All right, so George, you take it. All right. So as he's speaking to Draken and you douse the potion down, you suddenly hear this, and I don't know why they don't understand me. It just kind of resolves itself into a language that you understand. And he starts he puts the liquid, some like this greenish like fungus water into this concoction, kind of swirls it around and pours it into several other little vials that he pushes out to everyone else to partake of. All right, so y'all can speak. Uh, Jibber Jabber just goes, "Okay, good to see you again, Alchemist. You help. Maybe these people can help you." And of course, he didn't take the potion, and the Alchemist is just kind of nodding at him and as he's talking, and then he kind of stomps away. But essentially hoping that you can help him find some cure for this disease that seems to have killed these drow earlier. Oh, it comes from the river, it seems. In all my research so far, and I've been down here for several months now, and in the last week especially, this river has gotten putrid, and I'm no longer able to use the water from it for my potions. I have to resort to this like mushroom juice, which it works okay, but not nearly as potently, and it requires a little bit more work. And he starts jabbering on about alchemy and potions and making them with this mushroom juice water stuff that he's squeezed from the mushrooms and things, versus the river water that he was using before. Anyway, as you're listening to him go on and on, you can kind of describe this area a little bit. You find several clusters of this glowing fungus that you saw earlier through here, peppered around this room, bathing it in this kind of glowing effect. He has a lantern in the center of the room on this stone block where the potions are. And you can see it's stocked with vials and bottles and other kind of laboratory style equipment. And you have a little makeshift tent off to the side. And he was holding some gourds that he brought out from the tent that he's using as bottles, and he kind of placed them down. And this part of the cavern has been very well maintained. It's been cleaned of rot and refuse, and you can see some like shelving carved into the walls from zirkwood mushrooms and such, with books and potions and other such things. So he seems to kind of set up shop here. You kind of see a little bed in the bottom, not bed, but a little wheelbarrow down in the south region here that he kind of has this tarp over it, but you can see mushrooms and components and things all kind of sticking out of it that he's gathered from the cavern around. Mostly mushrooms, I will say. When I first got here, I had some foodstuffs from where I come from, but I've kind of gone through that by now. I come from my home. Where do you come from? See, here's the thing. I'm going to be honest with you, because you guys seem like very trustworthy folks. When I first got here, the Mad Mage, I'm not sure. The Mad Mage seems to have wiped my mind of things, and I can't seem to remember much about where I come from. I know about alchemy. I know about how to make potions and things. And so I've been trying to use my skills to try to find some way to not only feed myself, and also to comprehend the languages of others I find very strange languages all of you have. And he's very talkative, and he says, but I've also been trying to find some way of restoring my memory, which has been very cumbersome, I will say. I know lots of potions that can do that, but finding the ingredients to such a potion in this location is a bit difficult. And he starts rattling off all these things. they're like these spices and like these truffles and roots from some of these trees and things that he knows about, and these different gemstones and all these different things that you guys have either never heard of before, or are nowhere down here or nowhere near Waterdeep, just like these very exotic things that you may have heard of before, but it's very very rare items. Oh, diamond dust, gold powder, things like that could help. It's kind of as a binding agent, and he starts rattling off more. But he says, I've been here about a year now, a little over a year, I think. I woke up here one day and I just found myself here in this dank, dark cave. And this mad wizard apparently liked how I dabbled in alchemy and other scientific matters and thought I'd be more comfortable and free to do my work here. That's what he told me anyway. And I'm content on working on potions and such while I try to figure out a way to get back home, but it's just strange because I don't remember where home is. That I have not found, I will say. This is obviously this kind of poisonous green sludge. And every experiment I've done on plant life, anyway, I refuse to hurt animals, of course. But every experiment I found on the plant life seems to cause this kind of chain reaction into the surface of the material to make it this translucency, and it requires a constant source of moisture and water, or it just dries up and turns to dust and just dies. Ooh. I have not seen any other new creatures. I've seen, let's see, I have seen the what do you call them? Oh, Jibber Jabber referred to them as the spider people. I've also seen, what do they call them? The Koatoa, I believe. It's these fish folk. I've seen them. They've also kind of gotten a little sickly, I feel like. And then the spider people are new, though. They've only just started coming down here. But before that, it was mostly, your typical kind of dungeon stuff. You see, spiders and grimlocks and things like that. Ooh, that would be fun. I have not seen any green dragons. Green dragons would actually not be very fun now that I think about it. The green seems to indicate poisonous, which we already have a poison problem, and I'd rather not make that any worse. If any of you are interested in some potions, I'm happy to trade. Oh, in the river? Oh yes, it does seem to cause some sort of disease or poisonous effect, and I'm not sure quite yet what the cure is, but I'm trying to find out. And you can kind of see some river water with this kind of green filmy film on top of it, and this kind of sludge stuff kind of in these little gourds around the room that he's kind of using as sample sources. Oh, I wouldn't recommend it. Everyone I've seen who's become... Oh, that would be interesting then. Oh, sure. and he like looks around and finds like this ratty looking notebook and this piece of zerkwood that he dips into an inkwell and kind of goes to observe. Observation mode as he offers you these river water sample bottles. And I believe Draken is also immune, assuming his 24 hours hasn't run out yet. Okay, so you take a big swig, and it is a disease. So if you are immune to all diseases, then it wouldn't affect you. You're right. So as you take a big swig, it's got a horrible taste, as you can imagine. It's like drinking mucus with like hints of seaweed and just urine. And he's writing furiously in this, and his script is this weird, strange language that comprehend languages allows you, I think, to read languages, so you would understand it. But if you didn't take it, you would just see this weird script. But otherwise, it makes you cough, and your stomach just kind of roils a bit, and you have the urge to vomit if you want to suppress it. And you do kind of break out into a sweat harder than you were sweating earlier from all the humidity. But otherwise, you don't find yourself succumbing to the disease effect that you saw the drow have. Well, that was very interesting. I appreciate you taking the time and the effort to drink such a corrosive substance. It's very the taste alone does give me some clues. Maybe I can use that to counterbalance the acidic values with a base. And he starts going on. Oh, sure. Let's see here. And he kind of goes under the table here and pulls out a few vials. That he has a potion of water breathing, a potion of comprehension that you've already taken here, which kind of helps with the comprehending languages thing. And he has a potion of watchful rest. Potion of watchful rest. When you drink this potion, for the next 8 hours, magic cannot put you to sleep, and you can remain awake during a long rest and still gain its benefits. He goes, oh, hold on. Just one, friend. Well, if you were to bring me some more components, maybe I can offer you some more. Mostly I've been using the mushrooms that you find growing around. Just, several pounds of each type. I can definitely do a lot with that. I have not seen a dragon before. That would be quite interesting. From a distance, of course. I do find your robotic dog very interesting as well. And he kind of comes around the table and goes, oh, aren't you a good doggy? He kind of gives it a little, pets. Is it programmed to respond to such courtesies, or is it mostly just a guard dog kind of thing? Oh, that's understandable. Well, you're very lucky to have such a companion. I should, I wonder if I can make something out of mushrooms and the soil around here to somehow create some sort of homunculus type thing. He starts kind of taking notes to himself. You bring the homunculus over? I gotta bring it up now. Oh! Yeah, definitely during kind of a long rest period, you can spend some of that time working on that kind of thing, or if you ever were to have any kind of like downtime, so maybe if you were to ever return to the surface, or maybe go back to Skullport for a period of time, you could work on something uninterrupted. You could definitely do something like that. Silver, not so much. Diamond dust can definitely be very useful. This diamond dust, gold dust, those sorts of things can definitely help with the binding agents of my concoctions and potions and things. Especially the one that hopefully will restore my memory one day. But I've found like specks of diamond and gold when I've done a little bit of mining, not too much really. I'm not very good at that kind of thing. Heavy manual labor is not really my forte, but when starts going on. Maybe with a strong enough amount of pressure. Same. A certain amount of pressure and almost anything can be turned to dust. If I have enough components, materials, I can create a potion of climbing and a potion of speed. Those can be useful too. Potion of speed is like the effect of haste for 1 minute. No concentration required. Well, in order to make that, I would need to get at least a good 20 pounds of edible fungus, 5 tongues of madness. Let's see, I need about, yeah, pretty much a good, and he points at the wagon in the south there, a good wagon load of equipment. They all these things kind of boil down to their powder components. It takes quite a lot of it to get the enough to work, and he starts, again, rattling on. Oh yes, there's these little red fungus that grows on the walls. They look like red tongues, really. That's what they look like. Don't eat them though. I don't. If you can find 5 of them, along with 20 pounds of the edible stuff, I can definitely do something with that. He understands that you want this. He's like, I'm definitely going to be doing my normal gathering of materials myself as well. So if you don't manage to find any, don't worry. Eventually, I will have enough materials to do so. Well, I need to stay for now. Luckily, Jibber Jabber has been kind enough to help me. He's big and not so smart, but very kind, which is happily unusual for an Etten. But he's been kind of like my protector. I'm so happy to have so many visitors that seem to be so amicable to helping me out. I appreciate that. Most of the adventurers that do wander through here in the last year tend to either demand potions of some kind without any kind of recourse of trade, or want to do me bodily harm, which of course I hide into my tent and Jibber Jabber helps me out, but so far I've been able to avoid any kind of serious damage. Since your last long rest, you're not sure about that time that passed between becoming the gaseous forms and being deposited here. There was a kind of a blackout moment there. You do feel like you're tired. You know, you're like the end of the end of a late afternoon kind of tired. You don't feel exhausted necessarily, except for, of course, Melannor has that one level of exhaustion that's sticking around so far. He does warn you that the comprehension potion only lasts for so long, so eventually he'll no longer be able to communicate until he can make more. He does have the one that he has there. And of course, Draken, you'll always be able to communicate with him. Oh, where'd Joey go? The communication, he seems to have the components there. They're simple enough to make the comprehension potion again, if he needs to. All right, so you guys are going to take a long rest. He kind of looks through all these things that you have. Like, you open up a pack full of like vials and bottles, like you're a traveling doctors or something. Just full of all these. You like start pulling out these goops and goos, and he starts like looking at them like, ooh, like looking at these things like, wow, these are amazing. And he starts kind of swirling them around in front of him, and some of them are kind of old and dried up and not really useful anymore. But some of them do have that kind of viscosity to them, and he goes, you definitely give me a lot of things I can work with here, and who knows what I can come up with. I'm not sure. But I can definitely take these off your hands if you're not really wanting them anymore. Oh, great. Like I said, I need to find more components to make the potions I know how to make, but I'll definitely take some time to study these new components that you're giving me here, and these are some things I've never seen before. I'm not sure yet what I can use them for, to be honest, but I can definitely try to figure something out. So we'll go ahead and Wendune can go ahead and just use the potion now. Is that what you want to do? All right, so I'm not worried about putting it in your inventory or anything like that. So you can take a long rest and not have to sleep through it, so you still get the benefits of it, and you can work through the night essentially. But before we do that, is there any other conversation with the alchemist that you wish to have before he kind of calls it a night himself? You can always just throw stuff on the ground. You know, the man mage won't mind if you want to get rid of stuff. He holds up a stone blade that he's kind of fashioned over time that he uses for dicing mushrooms and things like that. Grave dirt. I have heard of some kind of I would call them maybe charlatans, for use a kind word, maybe saying, oh yeah, this is grave dirt, you can do something special with it, but in my opinion, it's mostly just really good fertilizer. Okay, so for Wendune doing your modifications, let's say we do we're going to say a intelligence check with adding in your proficiency bonus. All right, 24, yeah. So you definitely, you obviously know Boulder's claws well. You designed and you made them, and looking at all these claws that you and George and everyone else have kind of assorted together, you kind of study those for a portion of the night and kind of get a sense of how you could use them with your intelligence check. So you have a really good sense of how you can use these things. So now for the actual tool part. Meanwhile, everyone else at this point, I'm assuming, is going to sleep. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. So the alchemist kind of goes into his tent and so on. Everybody else kind of goes into the magic tent that has space, and Wendune can probably stay out here if he wishes to do his work. So now I will say that you don't have like a forge. You don't have necessarily an anvil. Yeah, I mean, Melannor could stone shape something probably to create like an anvil type thing you could use. All right, I got a DC in my mind for what I think this would go for. So let's go with a dexterity plus proficiency. Dexterity check plus proficiency bonus. All right, roll a d4 to add to that. 18 total. All right, it takes you essentially all night long okay, the rest of the night to do this. I mean, with the lacking of like real like forging equipment, it's a little more difficult, or at least you don't have like every little tool you could, or at least the surface quality here is the humidity, the moisture in the air, all these little things. So, but we're going to say though is that Boulder has not 5 claws on both hands that have been replaced. A couple of them did break in the process, but now there's 3 on both front paws that are much more gnarly looking than the rest. So the force empowered rend, instead of it being +4 to hit, we're going to say now it's +6 to hit. So D20 +6 when you do your force empowered rend. The damage itself will be instead of 1d8 +2, we're going to say 2d8. +6 to hit, and the hit damage is 2d8 force damage. Now, I will say also, just to give all the kind of warnings I can imagine, these gnarly claws on whatever certain surfaces will say, he's going to have disadvantage on stealth checks. kind of like wearing like a plate mail or something, you know, with as he's walking around. Not necessarily on dirt or mossy surfaces, but definitely on like stone or metal or tile, you know, something like that. So you wake up the next day. All right, you all come out of your magical tent. It folds back down into its camper's respite rod. Okay, the alchemist comes out of his tent and he sees all of you kind of gathered and eating your rations and things, and he goes, "Oh, go gaga," which Draken hears as, "Oh, good morning." And alchemist kind of rubs his eyes and kind of munches on some mushroom himself as he starts preparing for his day. What would you like to accomplish? Now, your one quest, to remind you, is to find the source of the poison in the river. That seems to be the main thing you're focusing on, I believe, at the moment. And then, of course, the alchemist would like to make more stuff if you want to bring him things. And then there's the dragon, who may or may not be here somewhere. And everyone else hears his kind of strange dialect as he says to Draken, "I tend to try to hug the walls." All right, so as you kind of enter the mouth of this cave, you can definitely remember them above. Your dark vision does see these things. The cavern here is not quite as tall as the other one. But there is definitely a path leading to the south, down this direction, and also to the east, and of course where you came from, to the west. And Draken, you want your light back on? See a little better. So yeah, you can see definitely all this stuff on the ground. If you want to just say, like, okay, I'm going to grab like a pound at a time, we'll say, we'll get a pound out every time. And what the alchemist essentially needs per potion is 20 pounds of general mushrooms and at least 5 tongues of madness each. So, and he seems to gather this stuff on his own, but obviously any help is welcome. Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys managed to get stuff. One of these guys decides to take a lunge at you, so he's going to go for George. 19 to hit. All right, he manages to reach out and do 1 damage to you as he falls to the ground, and he you can see the long like hummingbird tongue lick the blood off of his teeth, and it then very comically slowly attempts to crawl back to the wall to get back up to its perch. Okay, go for it. Oh yeah, that definitely hits. 12 damage, so it's like, you can see it kind of crumple beneath your head and almost let out a little, and you can see the blood it just got from you kind of vomit out of its mouth, but it's still alive though, it's still trying to crawl away. That hits. Oh yeah, that does it. So, splat. They're not hard to kill. So you're all gathering mushrooms as you go. We'll just keep note of that. All right, so you want to head south or east or back the way you came? To the west or north? According to the mushrooms spoke to Mellanor, the river can be found to the south. Make your way around these guys, and of course these two fall down and try to grab you. Yeah. Sure. So they're both, you can see them coming. You know, it's not, these things are not meant to be a challenge at all. And they do, they fall, they drop down teeth wide. The first one gets an 18 to hit. The second one 16. Both going for George, who was in the front. Yeah, so neither of them are going to really do anything to you. They're going to essentially hit the ground and attempt to crawl back to the wall to get up to the ceiling. So if you want to hit them while they fall, at this point, feel free. Hits. That hits. One of them is definitely killed. Yeah, it falls to the ground and it's like crawling over to the wall, and you kind of reach down and so we'll say it's not hard to hit. So we're going to say, well, okay, that technically it does not hit, I suppose. So it's a slippery little sucker, and as you try to like grab it to do your shocking grasp, it kind of wiggles out of your grasp, and you do not hit with the spell. Ooh, I have an effect for that one. Bong. Yeah, it's not happy. It's like you see this kind of teal-colored ooze of blood kind of draining down the wall as it's like desperately trying to get up the wall. Oh yeah, and you have 2 attacks, Wendune, if you want to do another one. All right, that did it. All right, so you kind of got a little bit of a path carved through here now. The ones that you can see now still in the ceiling are over here on the eastern side of the cavern, and are not within your direct, not within your direct path. All right, picking up mushrooms along the way. We'll say each room, if you decided to gather, you each can get a pound of the normal mushroom types from each room, just in general. And I'll tell you if you find the tongues specifically. Okay, this tunnel eventually opens up as you come down here. Again, a lot of moss and fungus through here. As you get closer to the mouth of this cave, you do start to hear some creatures maneuvering about. Okay, you're rolling stealth then. Pass without a trace, so plus 10 to all stealth rolls. We'll say with the fungus on this room, Boulder does not have disadvantage. All right, 22 on perception. So they do notice something coming down the tunnel, and you hear their idling kind of stop all of a sudden. And they seem to be maneuvering into position. As you peek in, let me reveal more of the room. So you do see some rocky material over there, and 3 creatures that were seemingly eating the walls and now have kind of turned to face you. And these are much smaller versions of that thing you saw earlier, where you found the throne that time. That was a much larger one than this. But they all see you coming, and we're going to have to roll initiative. So the way this is going to work, this is the first time to use it, is you get to essentially ask if any creature within range has a higher initiative than you. And if the answer is yes, you can choose to switch. So within 30 feet is, and one of them has a 16 initiative. All right, so now you have 16, and they have the 14 that you have. With that initiative change, Wendune goes first. Mellanor got a 12. He's the next. And you know that one of them has a 14 that's traded with you. Alright, so you make the 3 magic stones. Alright. So next to act is with his new 14 initiative. This guy. So he is going to burrow into the ground and disappears from view as he kind of melds into the stone. Okay, next act is Mellanor. That hits. Success. Okay. All right. Dexterity. First one, 18. Second one, a 9. Constitution save. Ice knife, and it shatters against one of their rocky hides, and then you follow that up with the frostbite, and it seems to not have much of an effect on the creature you targeted. And they all just kind of clack their teeth together. Alright, George's turn. That's a crit. Nice. 28 damage. 12 is a miss. So the first hit, you find Purchase like between the rocky shells that make up this thing's hide, and manages to like crack right in between them and just like shatter those shells of rock and stone, and it lets out this blood curdling. And then you come in again from the side, and it just kind of glances off the stone armor. That is a 9. Bong, 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 bong. 19 points of radiant damage as his celestial bell comes down on this thing. And it dissipates. Alright, this creature in front of George is going to decide he's been hit too much already. And he's going to make a multi-attack. So you're going to do 3 claw attacks. You just 3 arm appendages, and then come in with a bite. So 3 attacks, 4 attacks total. So first claw attack is a natural 1, a 10, and then we have a 25 for the third one. So the first claw swings, and you just dodge out of the way as it swings and hits air. Second one glances off your shield. Third one manages to clock you right in the face. And he does, with his claws, 6 points of slashing damage. And then coming in with his bite, he rolls a 21. He does 12 points of piercing damage as his giant toothy maw latches onto your body and pierces around the side and back. Next act is this creature coming up next to his compatriot. And is going to do the same. 3 claw attacks and a bite against George. First one, 13. Second one, natural 1. Third one is an 18. And then the bite, a 19, which hits. Yep, so that does hit. The bite gives you 13 damages. Another toothy array of sharp teeth come clawing in and smashing into your other side, giving you these matching tooth marks on both sides. And then this one is going to then earth glide into the stone beneath. You can, however, it is an unusual movement, so he's going to be counting as if he has partial cover. But go for it if you would like. With the partial cover, he has a 21, so it does miss. So he like glides downward, and you try to swing, and you don't manage to get him. All right, Draken, you're up. Levitate. There's a little wing icon to indicate that you are levitating. So that's your action. So you float up into the air. This tunnel that you're in is about, we'll say 15 feet tall. So if you go all the way up to the top, you'll be 10 feet off the ground. So you'd have to move to get visibility. So move somewhere. Yeah, you're up in the air. 12 to hit is a miss. You still have them in your hand. You got them ready to go. All right. Top of the round, it is Wendune. Back to you. So two of these, although outside of your line of sight, so two of them did tunnel into the ground, so, but you don't necessarily know that. Okay. So your next attack that hits will have the effect. That hits. So, echoing. Let's see, do I have a sound for that? An echoing, loud noise. So yeah, you just blow a hole through this rocky creature. Just rock chunks go flying out behind it, and it crumples to the ground in a rocky heap of boulders. This thing is no longer kicking. Yeah, it will essentially use your reaction. So this little blue dot means your reaction has been used. The original creature that tunneled through the ground, it springs up on this side of Mellanor down this way. And it's going to make its 4 attacks against Mellanor, 3 claws and 1 bite. However, your held action was when you saw one of these things, I assume, you're going to cast it, so go do that first. That hits. So you immediately, you're like watching for it, and it bursts up right next to you, and you cast it right away, point blank range. But it still attacks Mellanor. So first strike against Mellanor does a 16 to hit. Second strike with its claws, 22 to hit. And that is going to do 8 points of slashing damage. Third strike does a 16 to hit, so misses. And then the bite comes in for a 21 to hit. And the bite does 19 points of piercing damage to Mellanor. So, swish, swish, hit, bite. Mellanor is being mauled by this thing. Speaking of Mellanor, it's Melanor's turn. Just hit him with your staff. Okay, so Mellanor in frustration, swish. All right, produce flame. Well, the flame like scorches the stone, but doesn't seem to really do anything or have an effect through the thick, stony hide of this creature. All right, George, you just saw the creature in front of you just get a hole blown through it and fall into a pile of rocks in front of you, and you can turn to assess the situation behind. Okay, go for it. That hits. All right, for strength, it rolled a 9. Restrained, 18 actually does not hit. So it gets all these vines kind of restrain it in place, and then you kind of come in and crack it in the back, and it just kind of takes it. Alright, the other creature that burrowed under the ground. And this one is going to come up right next to Wendune. And he is going to do his flurry of attacks against the dwarf. First, a strike with the claws. A 14 to hit. Second strike. Even less. 11. Third strike. That is a 21. Okay, so third claw attack does 8 slashing damage to Wendune. And then he comes in with the teeth for a big bite, which is only a 13 to hit, so he misses with that one. Alright, Draken. So Draken, you're floating up here in the air. So, lightning bolts. We have to do I gotta do a dexterity save first. And I got a 12. 36 damage. Boom. Lightning bolt fills the cavern with light, and just a big old rocky chunk of this creature goes shattering in Wendune's face. And Wendune kind of like, oh, shakes his head from the loud noise. Your breath weapon. Okay, you got a 19. So 2 damage. Okay. So Wendune, you get your reaction back. Since it's the top of the round. Okay, nice. So the magic stone, that is a ranged attack with something that's within melee distance. Now you can, of course, take a step back and throw it, but that does open you up to a reaction. So they'll just hurl this rock at this thing right in front of it. And it is a rock, essentially, but it does tend to, it seems to make some kind of cracking noise when it hits, and it like, there's a little grunt at you. Although this one is restrained, so it have disadvantage. And speaking of being restrained, it does take 1d6 damage at the start of its turn for having all these thorns all over it. So if you want to roll that, Ben. Okay, so 1 damage from the vines. And it's going to do a strength check to try to get out. That is an 8. So it does not do that. That fails. But now it is Mellanor's turn. Blight. Okay. So he's 16 for a Constitution save. Wow. Whew. 25 points of damage. So right in front of him, Melannor just sticks out both hands, and just sickly black energy kind of pulsates from and just cascades over this rocky creature, and he seems to, he's not happy about it. You can see the kind of smoke, like it just kind of burns, but not in a way that causes it to burn red. It's like acid, and kind of eating away at the rock, but he still seems to struggle against it and fights against the effect. Okay. That is a 14. All right, George. It's definitely looking rough, as the blight took a big chunk out of him. Literally. He is restrained, so you do have advantage. That one hits. Okay. Wow. Yeah, he is not happy at all. Wisdom save. Wisdom save is not his forte. 13. We gotta do this first. Yeah, that does it. restrained and held in those vines, the bell like crashes down on him, and whenever the bell kind of fades away, you just see a pile of rubble where he was. So this creature sees the writing on the wall, so we say, and it's going to earth glide down into the ground. Now both Wendune and George get attack opportunities if they so wish to take them. Partial cover, +2 AC. 17 is a miss. Alright, so both of you, as this thing glides downward, you both swing and manage to helpfully avoid hitting each other. and but barely miss the creature as it fades from view into the ground. And nobody has tremor sense, but you get the feeling it's probably not going to come back anytime soon. So combat essentially is over at this point, unless you can somehow get to it or attack it in some other way. Joey, those seem to be crystals that these creatures were eating. They were digging out of the ground and finding these kind of fist-sized crystals in the walls. Okay, you can hear the river much more loudly at where you are currently. I'll get rid of that. But sure. So it'd be an Arcana check. So you go up to one of the piles of rubble that used to be this creature, and you kind of searching through this elemental corpse essentially, and you do manage to harvest from it with that roll. So if you'd like to, you're able to roll a 1d12, and this takes approximately an hour to do this, for Draken to do this. Otherwise, and while he's doing that, if you guys want to gather crystals, you can. Draken manages to find 10, nice roll, teeth of this creature. And these little teeth are not huge or anything. I mean, they're good size, you know. And you can imagine these could be fastened to arrows or bolts and add a little bit of oomph to their damage. There's 10 of them. Feel free to roll a 1d6. Nice. You find 3 chunks of earth essence. As an action, this essence of earth can be rubbed on a weapon where it will solidify, and for 1 minute, the weapon is considered magical, and attacks with the weapon deal an additional 1d6 damage, of bludgeoning damage. And then do a 1d4 for me, Joey. One more thing. 4. Nice. You're getting maxes on all this stuff. Find 4 ounces of arcane dust that you found before in other magical constructs. Alright, I've added it to your inventory. And the arcane dust, as a reminder, since it's been a while, 2 ounces of arcane dust can be used when casting a spell that deal damage. And if you use it, you can choose to re-roll one of the rolled damage dice, but you have to keep the second result. So it's like a added little re-roll in there. Okay, as far as the crystals, while he's doing that, it takes him a good hour, like I said. And so while he's doing that, you gather about 20 of these fist-sized crystals. And they're worth approximately, you can imagine, about 10 gold each. Alright, so as you kind of continue south through here, you do find this little entrance, this little cave that opens up to an underground flowing river. And this river, much like you saw in Willow's domain, it's got this green film of slime, and it seems to be much more consistent. Like it's not so like in Willow's area it was like more patchy. Here it's just like covered in like this film of mucus. Yeah, this river kind of flows to the east from where you currently are. Now across the river, let's see, do you have the vision to see that far actually? Well, Draken's light reaches down to about here or so, and we'll say just barely make out. There's a path across the river. Little rocky paths. and do a perception check. This river is very murky. And with this kind of dim blue light in this dark cavern, even with dark vision, you don't really make, and with this thick mucousy film on top of the river, you don't really make out any movement or shapes within it. Now, of course, going back the way you came, there's a path that continues east up there, next to where the alchemist was. Wherever Jibber Jabber makes his little home is probably in this little area here. But otherwise, the river continues east, and there are paths to the south across the river. Now, I believe you guys have access to water walking, right? I mean, you could just walk down the river if you wanted to. Just keep going. Alright, so you all have water walk applied. So as water walking is being cast, you all of you, hear a voice. And you almost half expect it to be the Mad Mage. It's like, okay, here we go again. But it's not the Mad Mage. It's a different voice. At least if it is the Mad Mage, he's disguising his voice somehow. And you hear this telepathic voice in your minds. And it says, "My old masters, so good to see you again. We should catch up soon." That's all he says. "My old masters, so good to see you again. We should catch up." So you guys start to walk this way. Walk this way. So as you guys are walking down the river, you do start to hear the sounds of tribal noises. And you do see a Kuatoa standing guard in this little cavern here. A little fish person. And it kind of looks at you and kind of shows its spear and like kind of in a defensive stance as it sees you walking on the water. And its eyes it's already got bulbous eyes as it is, but they're now like really wide-eyed watching you guys doing this. There's also a path heading north here, and it kind of watches you. Well, it's becoming more and more poisoned as it comes to water. You see this kind of Kuatoa village open up. Yeah, and as you're kind of eyeing all these creatures from, giving them a side eye as you're walking by, you do see that they do appear, although you don't necessarily know a lot about their physiology, but they don't exactly look healthy. And this area just reeks with sickness, and slime is just everywhere. You see these decorations of sharpened bones litter the beachhead, kind of acting like caltrops. Like if you were to step on them, they would like slow you down, as a defensive measure along the waterfront. And several Kuatoa fighters stand guard. You can either do a perception or medicine check, either one, if you want to kind of assess their appearance from where you are. Well, Wendune, you do notice that the fighters who are like standing guard there and like holding their stabs defensively aren't the most steady on their feet, and their gills appear swollen and red. And as you're looking back behind them, past them at the village, you do see a lot of these Kuatoa are lying on pallets of fungus, kind of these fungus bed rolls made of these little mats with fungus stuffed in them. And they do appear to be all kind of in a quarantine, or not really quarantine, but just like a medical ward almost, of just all these sick Kuatoa lying about. They appear to be naturally translucent, so it's hard to tell if there's like anything wrong with them as far as the translucency goes. But they do have a translucent nature to them based on just them being these fish creatures. Okay, so you kind of turn and make your way. And so as you approach, the guards, kind of come around and to greet you, shall we say. but with their spears, you know, at the ready. And they go, and Draken, you hear, what manner of creatures are you? What do you want? And you kind of hear them coughing. Yeah, his stilted Kuatoa from the book. He's like dragon. He points to himself, refers to himself as a dragon, refers to George as an ogre, refers to Wendune as small fish, and Mellanor is pointy ear fish. And the Kuatoa all kind of look at each other and look at you and goes, You're not from around here, are you? Blah, blah. And all of you here just kind of like blah, 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 blah. He goes, You should speak to Nugaloop. Nugaloop, our chieftain. And they kind of motion for you to follow. So you express this to the group. So deftly avoiding the caltrops on the beachhead, you kind of pick your way through, and this place is just awful. Refuse. No sense of using a bathroom, shall we say, in any kind of way that would make sense. These creatures are just on their deathbeds, this feels like. So in this area, you do find quite the scene. So as you kind of single file squeeze into this cavern, and this cavern is coated in this slime substance, and it's hard to tell if these creatures naturally have a slimy, residue that they happen to live in, or if this is from the river. But the floor of the cave is sticky beneath your feet, and as you approach, the smell of rot and death can be sensed. As you enter the room, you see rotting piles of monster parts scattered around. You see pieces of a bugbear, carrion crawler. You see pieces of troglodytes, and there's more. It's enough to make you want to gag. You see this one particular Kuatoa who seems to be in charge. He's working on something sprawled on the floor here in front of him, and upon inspection, you see it looks like a statue is being pieced together from Zerkwood planks, like the big wood replacement mushroom trees, but a bugbear torso, troglodyte arms and claws, and so on, all kind of being pieced together into some sort of statue made of body parts and things, all kind of being tacked together. Yeah, it's pretty grisly. The head of the statue appears to be a rusty lantern with a beard of moss beneath it, and it has this kind of a green glow to the lantern. And this Kuatoa here, this one here, turns to as you enter and introduces himself as Nugaloop. And I am Nugaloop, chieftain of this tribe. He is not. He is speaking to Draken. Well, he's speaking to all of you, but Draken's the only one so far who can understand him. A little. Says, the tyrant in the deep came from somewhere else in the dungeon several weeks ago. It started slow, whispering to us from the deep and picking off those of us who wandered too far. Once they became its slaves, it sent them back to us to infect us with this horrible disease. With the Mad Mage's help, I'll be able to perform a ritual to cleanse our river. He told me you were coming. The Mad Mage speaks to me. You, and he points to all of you, will help us take our effigy to the center of the Twisted Caverns. We will perform this ritual and cleanse our water from this sickly, awful poison. Nugaloop here apparently has some sort of communication with Hallister Blackcloak himself. And he's been under the impression that you have been sent to help his tribe by taking this grisly confection of pieces that make up this effigy taking this thing to the center of this area, performing some sort of ritual, and somehow that's going to cleanse the poison from the river. And he's not asking. He seems to be very expectant. Like, of course, this is why you're here. The tyrant of the deep. So there's some sort of creature that he's referring to that seems to live in the river that has entered this domain and has wreaked havoc with this poisonous creation of it. And it seems to have started a few weeks ago. And yeah, the smell of this place is just awful. It reeks these body parts and just rotting corpse pieces of monster varieties being stitched together in this really haphazard way with this lantern on top of the statue. He says, like I said, the Mad Master instructed us to build his effigy. And he points to this statue that he's building, and now that he's said this, you can kind of, if you squint your eyes a little bit and like tilt your head, maybe this is like some kind of Hallister-ish construction with the beard of moss and so on. So he's trying to build some sort of Mad Mage effigy with these pieces, and he is to bring it to the Hallister statue in the center of this land. Perform the ritual they have been instructed to perform. And if successful, the Mad Master has promised to deliver our tribe away from this awful place to a paradise. He says, he continues on to Draken, since Draken seems to be the one in charge, as far as he can tell. He says, the tyrant in the river seems to enthrall those that he whispers to. And once they become its slaves, were sent back to the tribe and tried to infect them. And these initial messengers were either killed or imprisoned. And Nugaloop himself, he says, has begun to hear these whispers in his own mind, enticing him. But so far he's resisted and has redoubled his efforts to complete this effigy. Some of his acolytes have succumbed to the temptation of the tyrant from the river. And of course, he says in this muttering tone, the Drow arrived as well, and they decided to assault our camp. But our fierce Kuatoa warriors managed to repel their forces. And then the Drow have also been infected by the tyrant. Yeah, this place just seems to be, so far, just a really miserable place of poison and disease and mucousy slime, and it's just not anywhere near as pretty as Wyllowwood. It's possible. And then you can tell that Nugaloop here is, he looks exhausted. Even though he's a strange fish creature, you can tell he's exhausted. And he's just working away at like stitching together this, hooking up this troglodyte arm to this bugbear torso with this like long fishing needle, fishing hook, and fishing line. Okay. So you reach into your bag, and this heart that you're attuned to, it's like just thumping, and you reach in and you grasp it in your hands, as you've done before when you've gotten your temporary hit points every day. But this time you ask a question, and you can feel the heart rate get faster as it like hears your question being directed toward it, and the response, it like fills your mind. Lots of mind speaking happening in this place, And you can feel this response in your mind. It goes, that way lies death. Probably. All right, so we'll come back here and maybe choose a direction from this point.